I've watched American politics for decades, and I can tell you this with absolute confidence. What we are witnessing right now is not normal stress, not routine outrage, and not political theater. This is panic, raw, uncontrolled panic from a man who understands deep down that the system he spent years dodging has finally locked onto him with precision. Donald Trump is not just angry, he is unraveling. And the reason is simple. Congress has placed a demand in front of him that he cannot tweet away, cannot intimidate away, and cannot bury under slogans. This moment matters because it reveals something Trump has spent his entire public life hiding: fear of exposure. Not exposure in the abstract, but exposure backed by documents, dates, names, and records. Congress has formally demanded a sweeping set of materials tied to Trump's behavior after his criminal convictions, and his reaction has been explosive for one reason only. Compliance would expose things that were never meant to be seen. Let's be clear about what just happened. This is not a casual request. This is not a letter asking nicely. This is Congress exercising its constitutional authority to investigate potential wrongdoing, and doing it with specificity that signals preparation. When lawmakers ask for exact documents from precise timeframes involving identified individuals, it means they already know what exists. They are not guessing, they are confirming. Trump knows this. That's why his response has been frantic, endless posts, wild accusations, threats against lawmakers, threats against institutions, threats against anyone who refuses to protect him. This is not the posture of someone confident in their innocence. This is the behavior of someone who sees the exit closing. I've worked inside government. I've seen how oversight functions when it's done seriously. Congress doesn't make demands like this unless there is a foundation already built underneath them: witness interviews, financial data, communications already obtained through other means. This demand is the final step, not the first one. What Congress is asking for is massive in scope. They want records showing how Trump has been paying for his legal defense while campaigning as a convicted felon. They want communications between his political operation and legal team after his convictions. They want documents tied to statements he has made attacking the justice system. And perhaps most dangerously for him, they want evidence related to possible intimidation of witnesses after guilty verdicts were already handed down. That last part alone should send chills down anyone's spine. Intimidating witnesses after conviction is not a gray area. It is not political speech. It is criminal conduct layered on top of existing convictions. And the fact that Congress is explicitly asking for evidence tied to that behavior tells you they have reason to believe it happened. Trump's meltdown makes sense when you understand the bind he's in. If he refuses to comply, Congress has options: contempt charges, referrals to the Justice Department, and additional criminal exposure. If he complies, the documents themselves may create new cases. There is no safe door. Every option leads to damage. This is why his legal team is scrambling. They are not calmly preparing a response. They are racing against time, trying to find a strategy that doesn't end in disaster. But here's the problem. The law is not on their side. Congressional oversight authority is not new, not controversial, and not optional. Courts have upheld it over and over again. Trump likes to pretend this is all politics. That's his shield. But oversight doesn't disappear because someone calls it a witch hunt. It doesn't evaporate because someone yells louder than everyone else. And it certainly doesn't vanish because the person under investigation happens to be running for president while carrying felony convictions. What makes this demand especially dangerous for Trump is its timing. This is happening after convictions, after juries heard evidence, after verdicts were rendered. Congress is not speculating about what Trump might do someday. They are investigating what he has already done as a convicted criminal continuing to operate in the political arena. And let's talk about those financial records, because that's where things often get ugly. Congress is seeking documentation that could reveal who has been paying Trump's massive legal bills: campaign donations, foreign-linked entities, wealthy individuals expecting favors. These are not theoretical questions. These are traceable transactions. Money leaves footprints. Trump has spent his entire life fighting to keep financial records secret: tax returns, bank documents, payment trails. Every legal maneuver he's ever used has one goal: prevent transparency, because transparency would show patterns he doesn't want the public or prosecutors to see. The communications Congress is demanding may be even more explosive. Messages between Trump and his lawyers after conviction are not automatically protected. Attorney-client privilege does not cover conversations used to further criminal activity. That's where the crime fraud exception comes in, and it's one of the reasons Trump's attorneys look so uneasy right now. If those communications show planning to intimidate witnesses, obstruct investigations, or violate conditions of release, privilege collapses. Suddenly, texts and emails become evidence. Suddenly, the wall Trump thinks protects him disappears. Watch his behavior closely. He isn't just denying wrongdoing, he's attacking everyone involved personally. He's escalating rhetoric, he's encouraging harassment. That pattern matters because it mirrors behavior prosecutors already proved in court. The same instincts that got him convicted are still running the show. And here's the part many people are missing. This demand is not coming from one isolated committee acting alone. This is coordinated, multiple committees, overlapping jurisdiction, in some cases bipartisan support. That matters more than anything Trump posts online. When lawmakers across committees line up their requests, it means the evidence overlaps. It means one set of documents confirms another. It means they are building something comprehensive. Trump sees that structure forming, and it terrifies him. Privately, members of Congress have been clear about one thing. What they already have is disturbing. They believe Trump has continued behavior that crosses legal lines even after being convicted. The documents they are now demanding are not curiosities, they are confirmation. This is why Trump's tone has changed. The bravado is still there, but it's thinner. The insults sound more frantic, the accusations more scattered. That's what happens when someone realizes they are no longer controlling the narrative. There's also the issue of testimony. Congress isn't just asking for papers. They want answers under oath. And that is Trump's nightmare scenario. He cannot handle sworn questioning. He never has. Lying comes naturally to him, but lying under oath comes with consequences he cannot tweet away. Imagine Trump sitting before Congress as a convicted felon, forced to answer questions with penalties attached. His lawyers imagine it too, and they're horrified because they know what happens when he talks. He contradicts himself, he invents facts, he incriminates himself. If he refuses to testify, contempt becomes a real possibility. Not symbolic contempt, legal contempt, added exposure layered on top of existing convictions. Every path leads deeper into trouble. There's also the danger of obstruction. Trump has a documented history of trying to hide evidence, destroy records, delay compliance. But this isn't the 1980s. Digital trails are resilient. Deleted messages are recoverable. Metadata doesn't disappear just because someone panics. If Trump or anyone around him attempts to destroy evidence now, that act itself becomes a new crime. Prosecutors don't need to prove what was destroyed to charge obstruction. They only need to prove it was destroyed in response to a lawful demand. Politically, this is a nightmare scenario. Trump is asking voters to return him to power while he behaves like someone terrified of scrutiny. Hardcore supporters will never leave him. That's not the audience that matters. The audience that matters is everyone else watching a convicted criminal meltdown in real time. Independents see instability, moderates see lawlessness. Even some Republicans see a nominee who cannot function under pressure without threatening institutions. That matters more than rallies and slogans. This congressional demand represents something rare in modern politics. Institutional resolve. Congress is signaling that convictions do not grant immunity, that running for office does not erase accountability, that the system still applies, even to someone who believes it never should. Trump understands that message. That's why he's spiraling. That's why this moment feels different, because for the first time, the walls aren't just closing in, they're already touching. Trump's strategy from here is predictable because it's the only one he knows. Delay, distract, attack. He will file lawsuits claiming privilege, executive authority, political bias, and procedural unfairness. He will argue that Congress is overreaching. He will insist that compliance would interfere with his campaign. None of that changes the underlying reality. Lawful oversight does not pause because someone is running for office. Courts have ruled on this repeatedly. Being a candidate does not create immunity. Being a former president does not eliminate accountability. And being a convicted felon certainly does not place someone above congressional scrutiny. Trump's lawyers know this, which is why their real goal is not victory. It's time. Delay is their oxygen. Every week they can stall is another week Trump avoids exposure. Another week headlines shift. Another week they hope something external saves him. An election, a distraction, a political crisis, anything. But Congress anticipated this. That's why the demand is structured the way it is. Deadlines, clear consequences, explicit references to enforcement mechanisms. This is not an invitation to negotiate. It's an order backed by law. One of the most dangerous elements for Trump is the financial angle. Campaign funds and legal defense funds are not interchangeable. If money meant for political activity was diverted improperly, that alone opens a new set of legal problems. Add potential foreign involvement and the consequences escalate dramatically. Foreign money has always been Trump's vulnerability, not speculation, documented interest. Congress is looking closely at whether entities with overseas ties helped underwrite his legal survival. That's not just unethical. Depending on the details, it could be criminal. Then there's witness intimidation. This cannot be overstated. Threatening or pressuring witnesses after conviction is one of the fastest ways to transform an already serious legal situation into a catastrophic one. Congress would not include that in its demand without reason. Trump's public behavior suggests he hasn't learned restraint. He names people. He attacks them. He amplifies threats indirectly. All of that creates a record, and records matter. The psychological pressure is clearly getting to him. Watch his speeches. The pacing is erratic, the anger unfocused, the repetition compulsive. These are not signs of confidence. They are signs of stress, overwhelming impulse control. His allies are trapped too, defending him publicly while privately understanding the gravity of what's happening. Many know the evidence is real. Many know the demand is legitimate. But fear keeps them silent. This silence matters because it leaves Trump isolated. Institutions respond differently when political cover disappears. Congress feels freer to act. Courts feel less pressure. Accountability accelerates. There is also a historical dimension here that Trump cannot escape. When Congress demanded evidence during Watergate, it was specificity that ended the story. Tapes, dates, voices. Once the evidence emerged, the narrative collapsed overnight. Trump is facing his own version of that moment. Not one tape, but thousands of documents. Not one crime, but patterns of behavior extending beyond conviction. Not one investigation, but overlapping inquiries reinforcing each other. The scope of the demand tells us something important. Congress is not satisfied with partial truth. They want a full accounting of Trump's actions as a convicted criminal operating in the political sphere. That's unprecedented territory. If the documents reveal what lawmakers suspect, this won't end with political fallout alone. It will mean additional prosecutions, additional charges, additional trials. The legal clock doesn't stop ticking just because someone is campaigning. Trump knows this. That's why his rhetoric has escalated into threats. That's why he frames accountability as persecution. That's why he tries to delegitimize every institution that refuses to shield him. But institutions don't work on emotion. They work on records. And records don't care how angry someone gets. The danger for Trump is cumulative. Each act of resistance creates new exposure. Each refusal adds another layer of potential liability. Each public outburst becomes part of the evidentiary record. Congress is prepared for this. They know obstruction when they see it. They know intimidation when they document it. And they know delay tactics when they encounter them. What happens next is not speculation, it's process. Courts will weigh arguments. Deadlines will pass, motions will fail, and compliance, partial or full, will be forced. When that happens, the story changes. It stops being about Trump's reaction and starts being about what the documents show. That's the moment he fears most. Because once evidence is public, narratives collapse. Loyalty fractures, defenses crumble, and accountability accelerates. Trump built his political identity on the belief that he could always overpower institutions through noise. This moment is exposing the limits of that strategy. Noise does not erase documents. Threats do not invalidate oversight. Panic does not cancel law. This congressional demand is not just a legal action. It's a test of whether accountability still functions when power resists it. So far, the answer appears to be yes. And that's why Trump is erupting, not because he's being treated unfairly, but because for the first time, escape may no longer be an option.